All right, we're getting the first access to some CCTV visuals that have captured the crash of Ajit Pawar's plane and the one that was carrying 4 others. This is seemingly a roadside CCTV that has captured the moment of the crash. Of course, this happened in Baramati. The circumstances in which this aircraft crashed are now a subject of investigation. But you can see that large plume of fire and smoke that is the moment of the crash that has been caught on a nearby roadside CCTV. It has happened close to what looks like a highway. There is not just traffic on that highway, but also seemingly certain other establishments, possibly a petrol pump or something like that. Some shops that are also visible, but clearly this is one of the first CCTV visuals that have come to light after this crash has taken place. A large fire engulfing that area and a cloud of smoke from the ground as well. Let's just play this for our viewers on our big wall here as well. As you can see, the time captured on the CCTV is around 8:46 in the morning. Exact time, at least as far as this CCTV footage is concerned, 8:46. I don't know how accurate that is otherwise. But yes, you can see at the top of your screen, just behind this roadside shack or shop, there is a large smoke, a cloud of smoke and fire that engulfs. And now this is why it gets very, very problematic in aircraft's crashes, because it's not just the crash, it is also the fire that follows that makes it very, very difficult for those on board to survive, because it engulfs you immediately. There is a lot of fuel on any aircraft which is taking a journey, and then of course crashing in these circumstances, it doesn't really leave much room for anyone either to be saved or to walk out of such a situation alive. There was public around clearly, which is why we have accessed very visuals very soon after the crash. In fact, people have managed to capture the wreckage of the plane while it was still engulfed in fire, and that's because it wasn't too far from a major road, a highway of some sort, and also a lot of people nearby, which is why the moments right after the crash have also been captured. But this CCTV captures very prominently the moment of the crash, with the large fire engulfing the crashed aircraft and the plume of smoke as well. Now, what was the reason for this crash is going to be very, very important to watch out for, because this isn't the first of its kind. We've seen certain very tragic crashes take place, whether it's a light aircraft or a chopper, where several prominent personalities, especially politicians, have been lost in India. But Yesha continues to be with us. Yesha, this CCTV captures the moment of the crash. I'm not sure how much clues this CCTV footage would be able to give as far as investigators is concerned, but the moment of the crash and the aftermath being captured very clearly in this one.
Absolutely, and like we've been speaking about, this was in fact a tabletop crash. Now that we've seen the CCTV footage, the initial information spoke about how the aircraft, the helicopter was trying to land first, and then it had to take a turn and come back to exactly the spot where landing took place. I think this was a tabletop. This was a tabletop landing, and considering that Ajit Pawar had been someone who ILS system to be installed at this place, is where preliminary information is coming in about the crash. But now that we've seen the CCTV footage, just a couple of feet before the take place, we've seen the aircraft has in fact crash landed at that very spot, and then you see the entire aircraft going up in flames. This speaks of kind of a damage that has been caused to the aircraft at that very moment. And this is in fact the first CCTV that we see. The timing in the CCTV is shown to be around 8:46. When the crash is taking place. Following which, as far as information from ATC is concerned, they got a call at around 9:12 about this incident. So clearly, this speaks of the time limit from when this very crash took place. Initial first visual coming in, it is in fact a visual taken from far from the highway around Baramati, because this very crash, that we speak of, had taken place.
So,
Considering
yes,
that
sir,
there
just stay
are,
with me. I've got Dr. Vandana Singh, who's chairperson of Aviation Cargo Federation of the Aviation Industry in India. The flight took off at 8:10. The CCTV captures the flight going down at 8:46. So roughly 36 minutes later, and a few minutes later, the ATC was informed about the crash. But looking at this footage or the timeline, clearly the plane had reached Baramati. It was set to land. In fact, there are also certain information that it already attempted a landing before this. What your sense, your first sense of what could have gone wrong?
Thank you, ma'am, for having me on your show. Firstly, a very, very tragic incident where we have lost 6 lives, including Shri Pawar. Now, Baramati Strip is essentially a tabletop runway, which is essentially meaning elevated, right? Now, in this case, very clearly, the pilot attempted a first approach, and the pilot said negative when it came to visibility. So the first approach, pilot said negative. The captain said negative. Then a second approach was tried. When the second approach was tried, then there was a mayday call. A mayday call only happens when there is a serious, threat or technical, mechanical, electrical, whatever it may be. But there was a mayday call. So first a negative, which meaning that was the runway visible? The answer was no. The answer was negative. So still there was a there was a sunburst, and the pilot took another turn and came back, and came back to land. And then there was a mayday call, and then you can see this aircraft now clearly going into a huge ball of flame. Obviously, there was so much fuel there because the equipment had to return back from Baramati to Mumbai. There was no question of there was no facility for refueling over there, and it burst into flames, and obviously all the bodies got charred. So this is how this is what it is. Of course, we need to see what the wind shear factor was at that time. But then the Learjet 45 is a very stable, very good, very efficient aircraft. This had a life already of 15 or 16 years, if I'm not wrong, and has been known to be flying a lot of dignitaries, VIPs, all sorts of movements here. But unfortunately, all 6 lives gone on this second approach to the tabletop runway.
Yes. Can I
and
ask
it did
you,
not come on the run.
Dr.
Yes.
Vandana, can I ask you, if you look at the CCTV footage or you look at the footages that people have managed to shoot right in the aftermath of this crash, the visibility doesn't seem to be too bad. Otherwise, it would be quite obvious in the CCTV as well, if the visibility was so bad that a plane couldn't land. Your thoughts, because the visuals seem to be pretty clear. So is it visibility alone that could have been a factor?
See, there are two things to that. So once, if you're looking at the weather, it says hazy with a bit of sunburst here or there. So it was not that bad. You can see it over there. But when the pilot was asked in the first instance by the ATC, the answer was a clear negative. This is what we are hearing. This is what we are being told. That there was a clear negative. Negative meaning negative to seeing the approach of the tabletop runway as such. Then the second attempt was made, and when the second attempt was made, the aircraft clearly veered off the runway. It has gone nowhere near the tabletop runway. It's veered off, and it has gone and burst into flames and crashed. You can clearly see over there. If that be the case, then obviously it is clear that this is A, visibility, B, wind shear, and C, if the mayday call was made, then there was something definitely wrong when it comes to what the pilot was trying to communicate. Was it technical? Was it mechanical? Was it electrical? Remains to be seen now that the black box and the CVAR have been recovered. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes. What we do know is that the AIB has begun its investigation. Their team is now en route to Baramati. But Vandanaji, I do want to ask you one more thing. Are there any, apart from the tabletop runway, are there any other peculiarities or certain technicalities available or not available that could have also lent to this situation? Any other fail-safe guiding systems that are usually employed in such situations? Because clearly planes do land in much worse visibility or fog situation than this one, because the footages are pretty clear of the moment of the crash itself as well. So is there something that, you know, certain smaller airports or runways or strips don't have that is generally used to guide certain landings?
No, not really. Firstly, they are all well managed. Either they are managed by, of course, DGCA is looking into all of it. Otherwise, they are managed by the Indian Air Force. As we know, a lot of airports are managed by them. When it comes to Baramati, this is absolutely a tabletop runway. Tabletop runway essentially means elevated. So if it's elevated, there is a certain way to approach it, and there's a certain way to land on it. And I'm sure the pilot here was very well trained to do so. Now, what went inside, why the Mayday call was made, and why the first approach there was a negative to actually seeing the runway, which means the visibility remains to be seen. And then obviously it didn't go there. It veered or steered clearly away from
From
the
the runway,
runway
yes.
and crashed into stony structures, which could have also led to the impact, because it was not such a huge equipment. It was a Learjet 45 and carrying 6 passengers. So obviously the impact could have also made the difference, plus the fuel in it, because it was meant to come back and it went into flames. So all of these factors combined need to be looked into to come up with a conclusion while they check on the black box and the CVR.
Yes, and
Over
that
to you.
investigation will obviously take place now. But just for the benefit of our viewers, let's break down what we do know so far as the situation on ground is concerned and how the events unfolded. So clearly, first up, it is being said that there was low visibility due to dense fog. That is the situational understanding of what really happened when the plane was wanting to land at Baramati. The pilot that attempted a manual visual landing is what we are told, but there was no ILS landing system at the Baramati airstrip. The aircraft fails to line up with the runway, which is very clear because clearly even in the second attempt, it wasn't close to the runway or on the runway. The landing attempt, the first one was then aborted, a wide turn was made, but we are being told, at least as of now, of course, final official word will come after investigation, that the fog hampered the runway realignment. Even on reapproach, the second landing attempt that was made by the pilot also did not go according to plan. The plane pilot is then said to have made a mayday call. So clearly, something was going very awry even as the pilot was attempting a second landing. What could that have been? Was it visibility issues alone or something else? Remains to be seen, because even if there were visibility issues, the plane could have veered off again and taken a wide turn again. But why was it not able to do so? Was it already too low? Because we are being told that the aircraft lost stability at about 100 feet. The plane then descended short of the runway, and then, of course, as the visuals behind me show, it completely split apart, broke into wreckage on impact as is expected, and was also immediately engulfed in flames. So, Dr. Vanna, I come back to you one more time before I go to our other guests as well. No ILS landing at Baramati Strip. What does that mean? Please elaborate for the benefit of our viewers. And also, if the plane lost stability at about 100 feet, was it too low already for the pilot to make some sort of a wide turn again? Or at this stage, if the mayday call was made, does it indicate something else than visibility issues?
First of all, yes, it could indicate something more than the visibility issues. Let's go with the findings as well, as they're coming step by step, like you just said. First thing is that on first approach, the pilot was clear on saying negative, meaning the visibility was not there, right? But the pilot did try with the second approach. This is very clear. And when it tried with the second approach, now just on 100 feet away, it's too low to really veer off or steer off or try to make a third attempt. That was not possible. Plus the mayday call, meaning something went actually wrong inside, which the black box and the voice recorder CVR will receive, reveal. And last but not the least, when you talk about instrument landing system, if it's not there, especially on a tabletop runway, So the pilot cannot be actually guided in a sort of a manual form to make a landing. That could be the difference. But in this case, there was no ILS. But even without ILS, the pilot could have managed. Now, my thoughts are going to why the Mayday call was made. Now, obviously, if the pilot could have managed a third attempt or would have taken off because it had enough fuel, the pilot would have done so. But something went wrong
Wrong, yeah.
inside as well, other than the visibility.
Okay.
Over to you.
Yes, thank you so much for breaking that down. Afsif Bhamla, leader of the BJP, and Lokesh Jindal, political analyst, also continue to be with us. Yes, Lokesh, I'll come to you for your first thoughts on what has transpired.
I would say it's a political earthquake. It's a huge tragedy for Maharashtra. If you talk about Ajit Pawar ji, he was a stalwart, uh, a mass leader, a 7 times MLA, a parliamentarian, former minister. He was an institution. You talk about Western Maharashtra, right from the entire belt, even Marathwada. That was an area where Ajit Pawar ji was a political center. He was the one connecting the Zilla Parishads, the local Gram Sabha up till the Legislative Assembly, connecting the sugar cooperatives, the industries. He was the leader of the masses, accessible to all. In fact, this visit was also related to the local elections that were to be due in Baramati region. I would say it's a huge tragedy for entire Maharashtra. It leaves a political vacuum because such a leader of such a stature, such a legacy, such a form of a connect is not there in Maharashtra anymore. And there are lots of regions where there would be a complete chaos in the time to come because the kind of connect this leader had to the grassroots level is something that is not to be seen with any of other person in the party's line. So it's a big loss for Maharashtra.
Yeah.
It's a big loss, and there is indeed a huge political vacuum in the entire Western Maharashtra region.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Certainly a very old school politician, someone who was very connected to the ground. As you said, one wonders if there are more such leaders on ground who can, really take on the mantle that Ajit Pawar had.